Welcome back to my vlog series where I take you along with me on my job and learn with me along the way. In this fourth episode, you'll learn how to replace a third generation X-Core Hunter timer with a fifth gen. I also replaced some clogged Techline and did a system inspection elsewhere. I worked 5 jobs this day, but I've made this a 2-part vlog to keep it to a reasonable length. You may learn things here that you wouldn't otherwise learn anywhere else, so come along for the ride. At this fourplex here, these sprinklers here, these pop-ups had 8-foot adjustable nozzles on them, and they were turned way down, and then they were still blasting the wall here all the way down. So as you can see, these side strips are working a lot better here. They're actually made for this kind of space. So I've got these in here now. I can turn this one off because there really isn't any, this is just weeds in here. And this ornamental cherry here is getting watered by this one that I just turned up because this was turned way down. So it's actually getting the root area in here. So I can turn that one off. And then down here, there was nothing watering the second half of this hedge. This was actually, that riser was actually capped. Here's the cap. So I put a side strip there. So now that's getting watered. On this line you can see that this head is cockeyed. Hopefully you can tell. It's laying over. So I'll straighten that one up. And we have a riser over there that is split. You can see the water coming out the side of it, so I'll replace that riser. And over here we have this guy sideways, so I can fix that right now. Hopefully this doesn't pop off. Junipers, once they get established, they really don't need to be watered in our central coast here, but it's being watered anyway. And then here we have these spraying dirt, so I'll be turning these nozzles off. I can hear a spray in there somewhere. Can't see it though. So I'll turn these nozzles off. Yeah, I've changed that to a 5/4, and you can see the junk that was on the screen here. And that's why you got to make sure that you use screens and use the proper screen. Otherwise it'd be clogging the nozzle. So when you have a pop-up that's tilted, what you do is this one here needs to go this way like that. So I need to dig out just a little chunk of soil alongside that pop-up. Take it out, then I can push that over, and then that soil I took out here goes on the opposite side. Okay, so I took the chunk out. Try to push it over. I don't want to snap anything down there, so I'm not going to put too much pressure on it. But I'll use the trenching shovel. See if that'll help. Not really. Okay, I'm gonna have to work at that a little bit. Okay, I was able to dig down deeper and get that straightened up. So now I'll shove the soil back in around it to keep it in this position. Okay, so we got it straightened up. I have it tilted a little bit at an angle because we have a little bit of a slope. Over here on this line, this one here is spraying all the way through onto the fire department driveway. So I'm just going to turn that nozzle off because this one, this side strip and that side strip are both spraying into this area here and getting this, so we don't need that. That can be, I'm going to change that nozzle. That's probably a 15-footer spraying in a 5 or 6 foot space, and it's spraying way out here onto the sidewalk, so onto the walkway. So I'll put a 5-footer on there. And we're okay over here. I had already done the inspection on this place several weeks ago, so I'm not doing an inspection on this. I'm just doing the repairs that I found needed to be done when I was here before. So that's it. On to the next one. On this job, this timer here, my son actually installed back in 2013, and it's starting to not work right. Several of the components aren't working, so I'm going to replace it with same thing, only better. X2 series 6-station. So the first thing I got to do is to label the wires with the wire markers 1 through 6 so that they can be installed correctly on a new timer. And before you do anything, you got to write down the programming so you know how to program the new timer based on the programming in this one. As you can see, I had to do some modifications there because it wasn't programmed correctly, but I'm just going to be programming everything on A. At 5 a.m. Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. Actually, the first thing I'll do is I'll get this smart port disconnected here so I can pull this wad of wires out, and then I can get to these wires easier. That smart port will be installed on the new timer. Okay, all the wires have been labeled. And the smart port is out. And I used these wire markers, and these are available on my resources site linked above. This is the 0 through 9 pack. They look like that. 3 in a set, and then you have a single if you need to mark a terminal, or you can put one of those on a solenoid. Next, I'll unplug the timer and then take the screws out, and then that'll just lift off the wall because it's hanging on a screw right there. I took the screws out using my Milwaukee that's also available on my resources site on the tools page. I'll have to drill a couple new holes based on the new configuration, but it can hang on that same screw. Okay, now that I've got this hung, the screws down there are not in yet, but I've got to get it level first, and the torpedo levels are available on my resources site too. So next I'll mark with a pencil those in those two holes right there. So I've got those marked now. Now I will use my mason bit. I'll have to take the timer off first. And then I can drill those and put the screw anchors. Make sure you use screw anchors. So I have the timer hung back up again because I've got the screw anchors in. So I like using this cool little bit holder from Milwaukee. It slides. It holds your screw if you've never seen one of these. So it holds it in here. And then as you push against the wall when you're putting the screw in, this slides back. So it retracts. It's really cool. Now that the screws are in, I'm going to use my Milwaukee to back out the screws that I'm going to use. Just back them out a little bit so they're ready to go to put wires in. I put the smart port in first, and as shown in this video here, I always put the blue wire in first, and then it goes red, white, blue. It has to go in that order. You'll get an error message if you don't do it correctly. And then when I get, this will get shoved back here after I bring the other wires through that hole. Okay, everybody's wired up. And now we can plug it in. Just gonna leave the twisty tie on that since we don't need to unravel it. It keeps it nice and tidy. And one of the things I like about this timer is that it has this backlit display, which is fairly funny because my flashlight just ran out of battery, my Milwaukee flashlight. So anyway, you get to see that it's backlit. So the first thing we're going to do is update it. Today is 2020, and we're going to use the back button to get to October, and we'll use this button to go to 11. It's Columbus Day. Then we go again, and it's AM, and I gotta look on my phone to see what time it is. Okay, so we use the down button here to 10, and we're gonna use the down button here to get quickly to 46. We'll go here to start time, and we want 5:30. The Hunter uses 15-minute increments. And here we're going to give, let's see, we're doing 10 minutes, 1 through 4. And number 5 and 6 are drip. We're going to keep it minimalistic because everything's mature here. We're going to go with 20. Rule of thumb is 30, but we're just going to go with 20 since everything's mature and doing well. Okay, and then water days, we're doing Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. So the raindrop means it's going to water that day, but we don't want it there. We use that button to move over to Tuesday, and then skip that one and turn that one off. There we go. Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. Go over here. We'll just turn this off. It won't hurt anything to leave it on, but we're going to turn it off. And that's it. And then before I leave, you've got your instructions here. I'm going to be writing the station identification stuff back here in pencil. Okay, so I wrote all that on there. I always write pencil only and then down a couple below the potential. If this was an 8 station, I would have wrote it down even further. But I want to get their attention, because all too often I find people writing this stuff in pen or Sharpie and then you can't change it. I had one yesterday that was like that, and it needed to be changed, but we couldn't change it. So I wrote this on here just like Josh did, except I made one exception. Not that he did anything wrong. This is the way we always used to do it. But you notice that we got front lawn first, and then back lawn, and then the rest of these are back lawn, and you've got your compass directions there, north, south, and center. Oh, I need to put that on mine. And then he went back to front beds and back beds, and that's the way we used to do it. But now I've changed it to make it more convenient. Since I'm already in the back, I've got it changed to back beds since I'm back there already, and then back to front beds. So I need to get those compass directions on there, north, south, and center. Okay. Use compass directions because sometimes I find somebody's written Fred's bedroom or next to the neighbor's, or next to like the Smith's fence. Well, I don't know who the Smiths are. And there's 3 fences back there, so, or they'll use some other kind of thing some kind of reference that I'm not aware of what it means. So I use compass directions. And that never changes. Okay, that's all complete. And now I've installed the remote, so now I can go out and do the drip system work I need to do. Out here, this drip system, this Techline isn't working anymore. It's all clogged. And so it's going to be coming out. I'm just going to put regular black tubing with emitters punched into it. I'm going to undo all this. There used to be a little tree there. I have all the Techline removed. You can reuse the figure 8s. I reuse those all the time. The staples are shot because they're all rusty. You see how the rust accumulates on it, and then they get weak and disintegrate. You notice that the gardener punched emitters into the Techline, and that's a no-no. That defeats the purpose of the Techline, and I won't go into detail, but just don't do that. In this situation, I'm just going to use these simple button emitters. You see why they're called button emitters. These are 1 gallon per hour. That's what the 1-0 means. If it's 2 gallons per hour, it'd be a 2-0. Okay, I've got the emitters installed. She's going to put a new carpet rose here. So I'll put an emitter there for it. Those poor little roses are finally going to get a drink. The emitters don't need to be right up against it, remember, because the roots are going out and you want the roots to find the water. The water just goes into the ground, translocates, and the roots find it. I put a button emitter there, and I ran 1/4-inch tubing to that yarrow there. But that's the only 1/4-inch tubing that I did. fountain grass. And then over here I tie it in here. I could have bent this over and went this way and over and then tie it in over there, but that would have been kind of a tight one and I didn't want this to kink over here. So instead I ran it around the corner here and put that T on there and tie it in right here. If I would have gone this direction with it, this probably would have kinked right here, trying to bend that corner. So instead I've got this, and then I've got emitters for these fountain grasses along here. And you notice the slack I have here, I always put slack in it. That way if you need to do a repair later on, there's room to move the tubing that way or that way. And then given plenty of extra here in case somebody wants to add on, and leaving plenty here. I see sometimes people crimp it right at the very end. You don't need to do that. That's difficult to do. It's a lot easier just to grab about 4 or 5 inches of tubing here and crimp it that way. That's it for this job. On to the next one. Well, that went well, and I've finished that at noon, so we're moving forward pretty well today. I'm gonna do lunch after I go get some supplies. Gotta get a couple more timers for stock because I'm out of the ones that I typically use. Here's what I did that I've worked on many times over the years, getting that lawn nice and green, and now it's been yanked out because of the drought, and they're doing a DIY job of planting, installing plants and stuff in there. Such a drag seeing that nice green lawn gone, but that's what happens. I've had a couple other lawns removed that I've worked on over the years, put a lot of money into, and now because of this drought, they've been yanked up as well. Here's one that's kind of yucky looking. But one of the things that kind of benefits me in my business, it's a drag to see people having to yank out their yards, but with the drought, people want their systems more efficient, so they call me to assess their systems and make sure everything's working well. That's elaborate. See how thick that lawn is? It is like a marshmallow out here. It is so thick. It's probably 6 inches in some places. But see, the sprinklers are having a tough time spraying over it. I've got my pull-up tool on that because that nozzle's busted. You can see how it's spraying up. This one here, same thing. This needs to be dethatched in sometime before spring. I'm doing an inspection. I do this quarterly inspection at this place. I had to push that down with my boot just so the spray could do a little bit. But see, it's not really doing its job because the grass is so thick. See how the sprinkler can't spray out because of the grass in the way. Place also used to be on my gardening route years and years ago, and we have done some modifications to the sprinkler system here to improve the coverage, especially over there. This is a trip. Can you see what looks like a mist coming off of this? Hopefully you can see that mist. That means we've got a teeny tiny pinhole somewhere. I can't see where it's coming from, but it's definitely there. That assembly needs to be redone anyway. It's leaking like crazy. In part 2, we're going to do an inspection and repairs at a house in the country club. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you can get notified when the second part's available. Hey, remember the free downloads that can help you with your irrigation systems, and the resources site where you can get most of these products that you see on these videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.